Propaganda I'm not falling for is that men need therapy. Men don't need therapy, men need a mission. You're not depressed, you're bored, you're distracted, and you're unfocused. Let's get it correct right now. Man without purpose will always feel empty. You drink, you scroll, and you chase gal because you ain't chasing goals, bro. Direction suppresses depression and discipline fixes doubt. When you're locked in on something, you've got your goals set, you're hungry for it, you know what you want, you know what you've got to do to get there. You're busy, you're way too busy to be sat down overthinking. Okay, so remember, in life you're not depressed, you're bored. You've got nothing to get you out of bed in the morning. You need some motivation, you need some drive. So as a man, before you sit there and diagnose yourself, ask yourself, have you got a mission? Because if not, you've just highlighted the problem. Propaganda I'm not falling for is that men need therapy. Men don't need therapy, men need a mission. You're not depressed, you're bored, you're distracted, and you're unfocused. Let's get it correct right now. Man without purpose will always feel empty. You drink, you scroll, and you chase gal because you ain't chasing goals, bro. Direction suppresses depression and discipline fixes doubt. When you're locked in on something, you've got your goals set, you're hungry for it, you know what you want, you know what you've got to do to get there. You're busy, you're way too busy to be sat down overthinking. Okay, so remember, in life you're not depressed, you're bored. You've got nothing to get you out of bed in the morning. You need some motivation, you need some drive. So as a man, before you sit there and diagnose yourself, ask yourself, have you got a mission? Because if not, you've just highlighted the problem. Propaganda I'm not falling.
Yes, people. Welcome back to Let's Talk Everything. I'm your guy, welcome. That talks about everything and anything, from talking about therapy, talking about football, which I won't mention. Liverpool played yesterday, but I'll do my review after the second leg, right? But it was abysmal. But I'm not here to talk about Liverpool. But yeah, before we start on today's video, don't forget to comment, like, and share, subscribe to this video. I would love to hear some of your comments, especially because of what I'm going to be speaking about in today's video. And hit your notification bell on so you get the latest from me. So, before I delve into what I wanted to say, so yeah, let's get straight into it. The title of this video, should everybody go to therapy? And I'll give my little take and then, yeah, we'll see what happens. I would love to get some of your comments down below if you've had therapy or your view of therapy. It will be very interesting to know as well. That would be good sort of material to, take in consideration as well. Like I said, people, I'm going into my end of year advanced year. So, it'll be very helpful for people to comment and chime in with their sort of 2 pence. So I can always use this. I know I'll be writing essays and so forth. So yeah, I would love to, probably include that or quote that involved in my essay. But yeah, let's get into it, man. So should everybody go into therapy? Now, this is something that might be, when someone gives you a question like that, you always go, right, it's up to you, do you feel like you should go to therapy? You're always kind of giving the question back to the person that always given the, the sort of question, right? And over time, I've kind of been like, what if we just decide yes or no? I know some people say that therapy ain't for them. They don't feel comfortable speaking to someone about their material, or speaking to someone only for 6 weeks, like the NHS that sort of provides, ain't sort of sustainable. Sorry. Yeah, so it won't be sustainable. So there may be very different reasons, right? And disclaimer, before I give my sort of opinion on what I think, listen, this is something that there's never really a right answer. I'm not looking for a right answer. I'm looking for a conversation, but as well as a general yes or no. Like, could we turn around and say, yes, you should go to therapy, which, drum rolls please, is yes, I think everybody should go to therapy. Am I talking from a, someone who's studying to be a therapist? Yes. But also coming from a lens of someone that has experienced therapy. One as well alongside studying, yes, of course, but also my personal therapy as well. So yeah, there could be a sense of bias in that as well. But I wanted to bring some sort of pointers to see whether or not you guys may agree or may disagree. Right. Whatever people may think what therapy is, I would say yes, definitely there's the space for you to go and be vulnerable and to be able to share, your material. And given that there's a therapist that's able to facilitate that sort of space, right? And be competent enough to facilitate that space. That's very important. But the idea is that there is a space for you where, we can be vocal about your thoughts, your feelings, right? Just period. Just on that sort of basis, right? Of course, therapy is much more, and there's so many lens looking at therapy. But let's just go based on that sort of premise, right? So should everybody go to therapy? Yes, because I always would believe and I stand on that it is beneficial. It may not be beneficial in the here and now, but it will always be beneficial later on in life. It could be beneficial in that moment, but as well as it later on. But the idea that I think therapy is a way of exercising one's mind, just the same way we go to the gym to exercise physically, I think emotionally and mentally, I think therapy is such a good tool to give you that time to have the emotional strength, to have the understanding of oneself, right? And I think that no one can tell me there's a downside to that. Knowing more about yourself or understanding your emotions to self is always going to be beneficial, right? So, how is it presented and how it's looked like is a different sort of conversation, right? Because you might have a different therapist. Your therapist might be male, your therapist might be female. You might have a therapist that's been a therapist for a long time, or you might have a trainee psychotherapist. So you might have a therapist that specializes in certain things. You might be going to therapy to talk about a specific thing, i.e. be addiction, where it be trauma, where it be sort of attachment, wherever it may be, and you might find a therapist that may specialize that. So whatever capacity and whatever sort of framework that is presented to you on the offer of therapy, if you are going to be given that space, it's always going to be sort of beneficial. Period. Standard. That's what it is. It's nothing for me to go by deepen it even more and so forth here. But I think just on a baseline, I think that's just our starting point. Now, how people don't get access to therapy is a whole nother issue, right? I'm at a placement right now that's going through some changes. I'm at a placement that's now downsizing. And one of the reasons why we're downsizing, there's a lot of logistics to it, but the idea is that the fact that, I was working alongside NHS clients, so that was being given by IAPTUS and so forth. I was working alongside IAPTUS, but yeah, basically I was with the NHS offering, the NHS offering that sort of 6-week sessions, and obviously there is funding. It all comes down to funding. So now, what is the consequences of that? People that even if they was able to get 6-week sessions, they're not getting provided, or they are getting provided, but now he's kind of moved to online. That whole idea to have therapy online, and that's a whole nother conversation. To have therapy online versus having it face to face. So, because of my placement is it's a big building, a lot of our work will now be done online, and obviously there will still be spaces for those face-to-face interactions. However, it's just going into a smaller space. So I think those are the factors, but I want to talk about individual. But just trying to understand what therapy is, and also really and truly, is it really sort of beneficial? Because there's obviously a lot of people that will talk down on therapy. One guy, he said he had those 6-week session, but he felt like he was opening up to somebody, and then after those 6 weeks of those 6 sessions, that is it. Boom.
In like 2018,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, 2018, my granddad passed away, and it was a big deal for me, like proper big deal. Like me and my granddad was like proper, like to a degree, like he was like father to me, innit? Like that's the way I viewed it, at least. And he passed away. It was mad. He passed away while I was on holiday in Japan, innit? Like halfway through the trip, my mom just called me and was like, "Yeah, he's speaking it." And I took it mad hard, like mad difficult. I won't lie. It was like, even still to this day now, like it's a very you get subject for me, innit? And like at the time I was contracting at Sainsbury's, innit? I was like, well, I was basically on a contract, and I was in kind of like financial problems. I was in mad financial problems, innit? So I was in a scenario where obviously I was in mad debt, but I had to go work. But the thing is, I was getting paid, like, so I would work and then I'll get paid 2 weeks later. So I basically got into like a cycle of like taking out payday loans to go to work. Because obviously when I found out about the news in Japan, like it mashed me up in it. So I took out a loan just to like basically just drown in the sorrows. Like I wasn't thinking in it, and so I come back and I'm in this cycle and I have to work in it. So I didn't give myself time to grieve. Do you know what I mean? So I had like a breakdown, like mental breakdown, emotional breakdown, and all. Cool. So Tutu's like, I decided, my mom was like, you know what, you might as well, like, you get me, go try grief therapy. I've always been against, I don't like really talking to men about things like that, you know what I mean? So I was going to the grief therapy, and like the problem that I had, this is the one problem that I had, yeah. So I didn't really like talking about it. But then I would go there and then I would start opening up. And then when the hour was up, it was like, okay, cool, time done. But then like for you it's cool because you're calm, like it's cool, you just forget about it and you get me on to the next person. But I'm in the middle of opening up and they're telling me time, so now I got like all these raw feelings, whatever, like you put man in a place where now the rest of the day I'm screwed, and I was like, no, I was like, no, I was dead, man. So like from then I don't know, man, I'm not really about this therapy thing. I can't lie, man. I don't get the
okay, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I'd rather just talk to friends, or you get me, or talk to people that I know, or like, but going to pay a stranger who doesn't know me from Adam, doesn't know any of the thing that I'm going, doesn't know anything about me, don't know me, don't know my personality, don't know what I like, don't know what I dislike, none of them things. And I'm meant to sit there and chat to you. Nah, man, killed it.
Like, you're gone. Do you get what I'm saying? And he says, like, I don't mess with that. Like, I don't want to be talking about my feelings if it means that person is now going to just leave. And now you can probably look at it from a sort of therapeutic lens, or what does that mean in terms of holding, containment as well. But that's not me trying to diagnose that individual at all. But it was very interesting to have that sort of point of view, and especially working alongside young people as well as adults. I think it's been an interesting point of reference to look at, because the young people now are having those sort of vocab. I saw a client today, and the way she was speaking about, how she's been manipulated in certain regards, not me disclosing a lot of her actual material, but using those sort of vocab as just, she spoke about her attachment and stuff like that. Her having that sort of knowledge and that sort of vocab was very refreshing to see, because I couldn't even imagine someone like my mum in therapy. Yes, she still would have benefited out of therapy, but using that type of language. And I'm thinking of my pups, I'm thinking of those type of generations where they didn't have those type of language. These language have come later on, and it's interesting to see that when you have a young person speaking about that, what does that later entail for that young individual? Now, it's not saying that young individual won't be gone through some things or some sort of crisis, but having that world of therapy and having that space to be given, there's a sense of comfort to know that, okay, if something does go wrong, this is a space that I knew that I had before that really helped me and supported me in those times, so I can go back to sort of therapy. Almost tug of war when it comes to older generation that are seeking sort of therapy. Somebody like, I won't go and speak to somebody about my feelings. Or also another reason why, like, a factor why people don't go to therapy as well, it's expensive. Like, if people are trying to, hustle and bustle to pay the bills and put, food on the plate for their kids and look after themselves, I think the idea to put money aside just for therapy and to sit down to speak to somebody, ain't nobody got time for that. Like, if you're hustling and bustling to, to make ends meet, and you're working and you're hustling to find that time, even though, yes, you can do therapy online, you can do telephone therapy as well. There are ways and stuff like that. But I think people's idea and sentiment, and this is me generalizing here, I might be wrong here, but I think the idea of just putting money aside for therapy is just not the one, especially when you got therapy charging probably £50, £60 for a session. And if you times that, you guys do the maths. I was never great at maths, I'll be honest with you, but English is more my thing. But nevertheless, the fact that you put in £60 and you having like 12 sessions, how much that is, woof, you're thinking, can I put that money aside for therapy? And I think also sometimes it could be difficult is the fact that, yes, you can, when you go to the gym and you work out, you can see it within yourself that, okay, you look in the mirror, okay, I'm getting in shape, or I'm losing weight, and there's a feel good factor. You can almost see the sort of success right there and there, right? It knows that if you go to the gym, you work on certain things, you'll get the result that you want, generally, right? But at the same time, with therapy, it takes much more time, and it looks very different, and how it presents itself is different. That sense of growth, yes, I do believe there's always a sense of feeling that you have as well. And it is there, and it is something for you to hold on to and grab to if you are be given the space to really work on yourself. But at the same time, for certain people outside looking in, they might be like, well, I don't see it, so I'm not going to put money aside for that. And if I have a hot take as well, like, and it's difficult because on a therapist sort of lens, quickly, is that a lot of people want to go private, right? They go private, and you set a certain price, and the people that are certain price because they've got to make ends meet as well. And the reality is that will be a demographic of people that will pay £60 for therapy, that will pay £70 for therapy, right? Because they see the sort of benefits for that as well. But for certain people in certain other demographics, that's like a no-go. Like, I ain't paying for that, right? Like, I was speaking to a lady, and she said, well, £20 for therapy was expensive for her. She couldn't do that. She needed something cheaper. £20 for her was expensive. But she knew that she needed therapy. It broke my heart, man. It really did. So alongside that, you got therapists that are trying to make ends meet as well. So they've got to be charging a price because that knows that, okay, that money that I get, right, I'll be able to put food on the plate. And sometimes right now, I'm seeing some therapists that still have their private practice, but will do another job on the side. So putting money aside for people to pay for therapy, I can understand people being like, nah, G, I ain't paying for that. Do you get what I'm saying? Or some people are just like, say, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. Like, therapy doesn't work for me. And I'm not here to say that it should work for you. Like, but at the same time, if we're going by my general statement, I think also the autonomy to give clients to be like, okay, try to find the right therapist for you. And some people might say, I can't do that because I don't have money. Then yeah, we're at a stopgap, and that goes and that falls onto the people at the higher ups. That falls onto the people that are able to give those funding. Because I genuinely believe that the government should be paying for therapy. Government should put an allowance or something like that, or your organizations as allowance worth to your mental well-being that they sort of provide. I don't think therapy should be going out of people's pockets. Now, different if you really want to have a specialized sort of therapy and it's something very specific that you want to work on. I could argue, or we could argue that yes, maybe you can up the price because that is something specialized, right? But at the same time, on a basic sort of level, I think therapy should be affordable for every single person, and it should be there. Now, it's your choice whether or not to take it. It will be your choice to take it, right? And that's the autonomy of you as an individual, whether or not you believe that you should have it. But I think if you start education from young, and as I mentioned, where you see the young people that are getting into the world of therapy, they are willing to be like, yeah, I will be able to pay for therapy because I know how beneficial it is. But if you speak to the people of our generations and the generations before, put money aside for therapy, nah, G, that ain't happening. And I hear it. So, whereby I go as well, where important if you're someone that looks for sort of therapy. Now, it's very scarce in this sort of climate of mental health. In terms of funding, it goes on to powers that be, people that are able to, pull the plug or move the plug, or you'd be able to put funding into it. Those are the people that I'm always hoping that they see this video. I think there's a lot of conversation about therapy that makes people want to go to therapy, right? And there's been such a shift when speaking to the adult clients that that said therapy wasn't a thing for me. I didn't think of going to therapy, but at a time, especially in this day and age where therapy was spoken about a lot, it made me want to go into therapy. And I think kudos to you, and I think that just awareness and having that sort of conversation, that's important. When we talk about these awareness, this is really important. It pays dividends when I see it in the therapy room. So I'm always kind of happy to see that. And like I said, I'll park away the sort of funding and everything as well. But I would say for people that are always trying to seek therapy, always look into your establishment, your work. So, if you work for an organization, try to see if they can get into therapy. I've always mentioned that my sister, for example, paid £1 for her therapy. She was working at a place where they were in partnership with an organization, and then for employees they were able to pay £1 for therapy, and she really benefited from that. So I'm always looking into those spaces, but always checking online as well, 100%. And people always think that, oh, you have to be in crisis, or you have to be going through a trauma, or to speak, it's something about your emotions all the time. I'm here to say, from a client point of view, I've worked with my therapist for quite a while, and I've never always, of course, there's been things that I've spoken about that are deep, and there are material that are kept in the therapy space, but things that I can share a bit that I used therapy was, for example, so during the time of the George Floyd in 2020 and that whole incident, it made me really look at myself as a black man, and especially a black man in the UK. And I think it was the first ever time, especially like growing up in a multicultural society. Of course, I knew about race and stuff like that, but I never really looked inwards. I knew it sort of holistically on a surface sort of level. I'm able to have a conversation and share my 2 pence. But if things that I didn't really know, I'll keep my mouth quiet. But at the same time, after the George Floyd incident, for some reason, I guess it was COVID and everything, there was such conversation about it online that I was absorbing all these different sort of perspectives, but I didn't know my own. And therapy was a great tool for me to use as a space where I was able to sort of really now articulate how I really felt towards the whole George Floyd, or okay, what does Black Lives Matter? What does it mean to be a black man in the UK? I spent a good chunk of my therapy in that time actually just sitting down for an hour or so talking to my therapist about what I felt about, what Black Lives Matter meant. Do you know what I mean? Or what did it mean to be a black man, and what does that mean to one's identity? I look at my own, and I look at myself and how I move and how it sort of plays out. It was such a great sort of space for me to speak freely. It was a space where I was able to have a therapist. I was able to, contain the space for me to, allow me to really sort of map an understanding of what that meant to me, right? And this is something that obviously did tie into my lived experiences. But like I said, fortunately, and it's I don't know if that's a way of saying it, but like, I had little microaggressions and stuff like that, stopped and searched. I know about that type of stuff as well. But at the same time, it's like, I'm not from that sort of world at all. So it didn't put that to question. And it made me look at others that are on the roads and stuff like that. And that made me think, this is why even in years to come, I believe there will be a time where a lot of the man that used to be on road, they will be suffering through PTSD. And you hear it now when certain guys speak online and stuff like that, that have been on the roads. They say that when they hear police sirens, the body just like shakes, like, or they're put on high alert. You feel me? And they spoke about how they have to smoke weed to numb the sort of pain. See the guys that speaking like that, those are the people that they should go to therapy. And I think that being allowed to in therapy to speak about those lived experiences will be a weight off your shoulders, because I think these men carry a lot. And I think there's a sense of release, but you want to be able to release all of that in a space and environment that allows you to, and that is therapy. The therapy will be the space to do that. And people might say, I might go in the booth, I speak about my experiences in rap songs and stuff like that, and people will say, yeah, rap is my therapy.
Did you do therapy? Was it?
Nah, my music is therapy, so I just, I don't know, man, I've been coasting through, and I feel like I write all the time, whether I use it or not, I write all the time, and that's my best therapy.
Or going to the gym is my therapy, speaking to my boys is my therapy. And I tell you, let me tell you now, that's a therapeutic feeling, but that's not therapy, right? That's a feeling that invokes a space where you can speak up and open up. See, that is one thing, but going to therapy is a whole different thing. What you man are experiencing and what people experience, if they feel like I can speak to my girlfriends, I can speak to my mum, I can speak to my family, and they might come from a good network. And like I said, another thing, it's not saying that you have to have bad parents, or you might come from a good environment, and I'll still say to you, yeah, I think you should go to therapy, right? Because I still think there'll be something to learn. Even if people that come from good environments or a privileged environment that aids a fostering home, I would still say, yes, you should go to sort of therapy to speak about those experiences in a space where you can speak freely. For sure you can, right? And you might learn one or two things about yourself, and it might not be drastic, but it's something that you've learned. And one thing that is always important in therapy is just awareness. It's not saying that now you have this awareness, now you have to change. No, I'm just saying, like Ibridge, to have that awareness is good. Learning about oneself, finding a map of meaning, finding understanding about self. Fundamentally, these are very good, a tool for people to learn about themselves. But we live in a climate that, is very negative, I would say. The vibe ain't right. That people might say the UK is bad vibes, or social media is bad vibes. There's so much more of, understanding about generational trauma, understanding, what it means to come from a broken home. People will need spaces to speak about those type of experiences. For parents that have lost loved ones through a knife crime, people will need to speak about those experiences. For people that are, single parents, women, fathers, like mothers or fathers, sorry, they will have to speak about those experiences. And I'm not saying that therapy should just be one individual. There's group therapy. You can find a group, there's a space. You have a facilitator, and that gives you that sort of space to be vocal about those type of things. So, listen, as I wrap up this video, should everybody go to therapy? Yes. A lot of the things that people will say I might miss out, people might critique and stuff like that. Before you pause the video and say, oh, you're chatting shit, like, watch the video, and then you can probably say, yeah, I'm chatting shit after. But I don't think I am. But at the same time, what I'm here to say is that this is my sort of perspective, and this is from my sort of lens, and my lens only. However, it's something that I'm now in the work that I'm doing, seeing clients, I'm still training in this moment, and seeing the benefit of the individuals that's come into the therapy space, working alongside other therapists in their walk, in their training, or in their sort of profession, say that the benefits that their clients have when they come into the therapy space. And there's a holistic sort of view that therapy is such a great tool, and no one can tell me otherwise. You feel me? Anyways, don't forget to comment, like, share, and subscribe to this video. Let me know your thoughts, people. Take care. We're trying to grow to 236 subscribers. I made it to 235. All I need is 200 and... How many did I say? Sustainable? Is that sustainable? It has to be sustainable. Sustainable. That's not even a word.